Hello, hi everyone. Am I audible? Can someone let me know if I'm audible? Hello. All right. If you guys can hear me, please let me know if I'm audible. Okay, great. So, hey everyone, welcome back to day three of the front-end web development bootcamp, Vibe Coding 101 by Smarted. It's great to see you all here again. Showing up every day is the first step towards actually becoming a developer. Yesterday, we got started with React.js and took our first steps by learning about components. Today, we are going to continue and go a bit deeper. We'll cover more basics of React so you get a solid foundation before we move on to building projects and using tools like Loveable AI tomorrow. Quick reminders before we begin. This bootcamp is completely free and we'll be running more like this soon. You might get a call after this bootcamp that's just asking for your help to reach out more learners. If you're enjoying it, to help us spread the word. Our next bootcamp is on artificial intelligence. If you're interested, just select a yes in the attendance form. And to get your certificates, which is the most important part, it seems, attend all the sessions live. Fill in the attendance form that will be shared anytime during the session. So stick around till the end. All right. So yesterday we covered how to set up our React environment, as you can see here, and we created our first component also. Okay, today we'll be seeing more on this, but just to get a quick revision of everything, I'll start everything from scratch. So I'll not explain, I'll just show you the entire setup. All right. So I'll create the existing folder. Uh, I'll just delete it and set up everything from scratch for you guys. All right. Cancel. I just need to close everything out. All right. And I'll just open it again so that I have a clean slate. All right. So let's first open our terminal from where we start. And by default, this terminal opens up as my on my user folder, it seems. Yeah. So on my user folder. Now, first step is to that take yourself to the folder where you want to install your or create your React app. All right. So we'll cd into downloads. So mine is under downloads. I'm inside downloads. Now, next step is to go inside the dedicated folder. So I am under Smart Ed Bootcamp. I hit enter. And now to install React, we had two methods, as you can remember, create React app, and second was using Vite. So we are again going to use Vite, create um sorry, npm create Vite, and we are going to use the latest version. All right, it is installing Vite. So it is asking for a project name. Again, we'll take something simple, React app. We are going to use React. You can scroll through up and down arrow keys. Then we are going to select a framework, a language basically. So I'm using TypeScript for this bootcamp. Hit enter. Now everything is there. I am going to go into my React app folder and then press npm I or npm install. So I is just the short form for install. I hit enter and it will take some time to install all the dependencies and all the files and folders into React app folder. All right, so we'll wait for a few moments. Meanwhile, everyone will join. All right, so everything was installed, it seems. Now, just to open your code editor into the same folder, you can write code space dot, and you can open your VS Code from the terminal itself. Now, let me close this terminal because we have inbuilt a terminal and we don't want to go back and forth always. And we'll also close this VS Code. All right, and we'll shift it towards the right of our window so that we have a clear visibility of browser at all times. All right, now to open your terminal, you can press Control plus backtick, and we have our internal terminal. Now you can write npm run dev, and we will run your server on localhost port 5173. All right, we open this link to open our web page. So we use command plus click to open this, and this is how our current website looks like. Then we saw what all of these folders mean, and then inside source folder we had the app.tsx, main.tsx. We created a component, so I'll create that also for you, called as message.tsx. All right, and inside this we created a function called as message, and we used Pascal casing. As you can remember, inside this function we simply returned an h1 element saying hello world, and now we want to export this component so that we can use it somewhere else. So we'll export this as default message. All right, we hit Control Save and everything is formatted. Now we are going to use this message component in our root, which is the app. You get some pre-default code here, which we don't want. We'll simply remove everything, and we'll create a function called as app. And inside this, we are going to return a div which contains our message. So before we use our message component, what we need to do is, sorry, uh, we need to import our message from message. All right, and then we can use it here. And finally, return this as default. Export this default so that this can be used, right? We hit save. Right. And you see hello world is being printed here. So this is where we reached last time. Yeah, we also created a dynamic element. So I'll revise that also quickly so that you get a quick overview. We created a constant called as name, and we use an empty string for now, which simply had a space in it, and we used the if condition to return certain things, right? To return the name dynamically, basically. So if name is a thing, then in that case, you wanted to return an h1 element saying hello, and then inside this, we wanted to enter a name. So inside JSX, as we all remember, we cannot use anything except for HTML element and React components. That is why we are using curly braces to import this particular constant from here. And if name is not a thing, then in that case, we wanted to return nothing but hello world. Okay, we hit save, and you see hello is being printed here because our name is empty. Let's say we wrote here Ujjwal. We hit save, and you see dynamically Ujjwal was being fetched. All right. So quick reminders before we begin. This bootcamp is totally free and will be running more like this very soon. You might get a call after this bootcamp that's just asking for your help to reach more learners. If you're going to enjoy it, do help us spread the word. Attend all the sessions live to get your certificate. All right. So now we can get started with today's part. All right. Any doubts so far? In the middle of live, so I will share the Google form. Don't worry, I have some things to explain about the Google form today, so we'll share it towards the end. Kindly hold on till then. All right. So earlier we talked about package.json, right? And we saw two dependencies that were React and React DOM. Let me show you how they work together. In index.html, so as you go inside index.html, I told you that we have a div with the ID of root, and this is the container of our application. Below that, we have a script element, and that is referencing to main.tsx. Now, if you command plus click into this file and get inside this file, you can see we are using React DOM. So this is create React is being used here, and this is important from the React DOM library. To render this tree component, render this particular component with an element of ID. So this is the component tree. This is our app right here. Component contained inside another component called as strict mode. Right. This strict mode is nothing but a built-in component in React. It does not have a visual representation. Its function is to identify potential problems. So we are taking this component tree and rendering this inside an element with an ID of root. And to do that, we are using a React DOM library, as you can see. We can also render this. So React, we can also render in different devices. So we can render this in mobile using a different library called React Native. So React itself is not tied to a particular platform. Basically, we are using React DOM right now for desktop. It is basically platform agnostic, and we can use it to build apps from web. We can build for mobile. We can build for desktop devices. So you have learned that React is a JavaScript library for creating user interfaces, right? In contrast to React, we also have other tools like Angular and Vue. I'll just quickly open them up so that whenever you see something next time, this is the logo for React Angular. If you see something similar to this, you can get to understand that Angular is being used. And we also have other tools, frameworks like Vue. Now, Angular and Vue are frameworks, all right, but React is a library. So, what is the difference between a library and a framework? A library is a tool that provides specific functionality, whereas a framework is a set of tools, not just a single tool, and guidelines for building applications. So, a library is a tool, but a framework is like a tool set. Now, so React is a library or a tool for building user interfaces. The only thing it is good at is creating dynamic and interactive user interfaces, but we hardly use only React for modern day applications. Other tools for various concerns, such as routing, means allowing the user to go from one page to another, is used. Apart from that, we have like tools for making HTTP calls. We have tools for managing state. We have tools for internationalization. We have something for validation. We have animations and so on. So for with React, we only use dynamic user interfaces, but for other functionalities, for backend, for middlewares and everything, we have a lot of different tools. Now, the great thing about React is that it does not have an opinion about tools. All right. So it is not biased that if you're using React, you need to use this certain set of tools. All right. It does not have an opinion. So you can pick the right tools yourself for the kind of job you're doing. In this section, our focus is only on React and not third-party libraries. Once you have mastered React, you can explore some additional third-party libraries yourself. So first, before even doing that, make sure you are comfortable enough with React. Okay, so next up, we'll be learning how to create a list group component. So you can remember this very closely with in HTML, we created a list, right, using unordered list. So we created an UL element, and inside that we created a UL element, and then inside that we had certain list elements, right? So this is how we created a list group inside HTML. So let's see how we can do that in React. First, we are going to install Bootstrap and to give our application a modern look and feel. If you're not familiar with Bootstrap, so I'll quickly just open Bootstrap's official page also, so that again you get to identify whenever you see something similar. This is what Bootstrap currently looks like. From here, you can navigate to certain sections. Okay, so it is nothing but it is a very popular CSS library that gives us a bunch of CSS classes for styling an application. So here we have our terminal open. Here you can see our server is running already, and these HMR updates are hot module replacements. So basically, Vite under the hood is updating our website in case we'd make any changes to it. All right. So we open a new terminal to install our Bootstrap. We have a new terminal right here. And to install Bootstrap, we simply write npm I bootstrap. Here you can see the latest version. I'll simply use the keyword @latest so that automatically the latest version of Bootstrap is installed. All right, so this is installed. How you can verify? You'll see a dependency, a new dependency is create Bootstrap 5.3.6, which also matches this. So you understand this is the latest version that we have here. All right. Now we need to import this on one of our CSS files. So here is our source folder right here. And we see a couple of CSS files, app.css, index.css. So here we have our app.css, right? And it contains all of the CSS for our app component. We need none of these, so we can simply select all and delete. Don't worry. If we need something, we'll write it again. We know how to write it. Okay. We also have index.css where we have all the global styles for our application. Again, we don't need any of these. Uh, this were imported by Vite basically, so we can delete this file entirely. All right. So basically, if you create a default Vite app and create components and don't do any styling, these are the styles that will be applied to your application. So we don't need this file at all. We will simply delete this file, move to trash, yes, and app also we don't need. All right. Okay. Uh, we also have index.css that is covered. Now let's go to main.tsx. Now here previously you can see this is where our index.css was imported. We imported our index.css, our previous global styling. Now we can change this to bootstrap styling. So bootstrap slash dist slash css slash bootstrap dot css. So this is the location of our bootstrap file. You can simply copy this while you're creating. We hit save and you see the font has, so going back to our web page, previously our hello world was in the middle and had a different font, and now it's on the top and has a different font. Beautiful. So now let's create a list group component. Now here in our source folder, we can inside this we can create a new folder called as components. All right, we hit enter. This is created. This is not necessary, but by convention, we put all our components into a folder called components. Now, why we are following a convention? Again, because other developers are doing so. So if you are working in an environment where 20 people are working with you, you need to have a certain system of doing things so that you can understand their code and they can understand yours, and everything is easier to manage, easier to divide amongst yourselves. Okay, so inside this folder we are going to add a new file and we'll name this as list group.tsx. Again, pay attention to how I have named this using Pascal casing. First letter of every word is capital. Now, in this file, we declare a function called as list group. Similar Pascal casing here also. All right. And now I will simply return an h1 element, which will say list group. We hit save and we export this list group, export as default. Okay, there is some spelling mistake. All right, and all our red lines go away, and that is such a relaxation every time you see. Okay, now we need to import this in our app module. If you are on a Mac. So if you want to navigate between these files, and there are like tons of files, tons of components in a website, what you can do is you can press Command plus P on Mac, and see, I can search app, and I've got both the files. I can go simply to app.tsx. If you're on a Windows, you press Control plus P to go into app.tsx. Okay, now we don't need this message component, and instead we want to import our list group component. So right here we write list group import from components list group. All right. We can delete this and I'll show you how to do it again. So when you write dot slash, basically you're navigating into the same layer of the folder. So our list group is inside components. We tap components and then write a forward slash, we get list group. All right. Now this is showing an error. Why? Because we have not used this component inside our app, this particular TSX file. So we'll remove message and instead we'll write list group. You hit tab, you hit save, and you see it is being printed here. Finally, we have to display a list of items here for which we are going to borrow some code from Bootstrap. So let's head over to Bootstrap, go to docs. Okay, once you are inside docs on the left section here, so if the screen is bigger, you get the contents. I've just narrowed it down so that you can see it. You can press this hamburger icon, and if you scroll a little, you'll find the list groups. All right, here. All right, if you go a little down, you see this. Okay, so this is a list group component in Bootstrap, this particular an item and second item, third item, fourth item, fifth item. So we need to create, in order to get this particular list, we need to create a UL with this particular class and a bunch of list item with this class. All right. Now we copy this and go back to VS Code and paste this in our list group component. So I'll use the navigation. All right. Sorry, I was on this tab. Yeah, I'll do navigation list group. I'm inside this. Now instead of returning an H1 element, now I want to return a list. All right, I hit save and this is being printed here, but we get a lot of error. Why? Because we are using class as a attribute to our elements, but this is a reserved keyword in JavaScript and TypeScript. So how do we get rid of this error? We can rename all of these classes to class name. All right. Now, how do we do that? So let's say there are six places where we need to edit this. This will take a lot of time if there are like hundreds. So how do we do this? We press our command key and D and then just keep pressing wherever you want. Okay, so it has selected all of these. You can simply write name, class, name, and here. Here you go. You get rid of everything. All right. And as you hit save, you also see that this is closed between these parentheses right here. Okay, so Prettier added these brackets. It is necessary. So if you're not using Prettier, please make sure to add these brackets as you're writing a multi-line markup. Now back to our browser. Here we have our list, but this is pretty boring. It does not have a functionality and it does not allow us to render or display these items dynamically. So what if we wanted to add heading above this? How do we do that? React gives us an error when we add a heading. Let's try that out. Yeah, we get that error. So we write list group. I'll just see the comment once if all right. Okay. I don't think there is something major. All right. We hit save, but React is throwing us an error. How do we get rid of this? And what if we like wanted to add a heading? How do we do that? And why is it giving us an error? So there are a lot of questions, right? React gives us an error because it cannot return more than one element. Okay, as told previously, it can only return a single element. So how to go about this? we can wrap all of this inside a div element. So React will assume everything to be inside this particular div element. And as you see, read automatically. So I'll close this particular, you see, the latest hot model replacement. There is a third change in the list group.tsx. All right. And you see, we have our heading. Okay. Our issue is resolved. React has rendered it correctly. So that is one way, but we are adding one element here or one node here just to make React happy. But is that necessary? No, not at all. So a better way to do this particular thing is to use fragment. So let's go ahead and import fragment on the top. We'll hit enter. Again, we write import and then fragment. I think it should automatically complete. No, no, not from React JSX runtime, but from React itself. All right. Now it will give me an error unless I use it somewhere. So what we can do is again we hit Control D and we write this into the settings of that. All right, no issues. Okay, I think since our screen is smaller, I'll just zoom in for you guys to see it properly and let me try again. All right, so we'll remove this div and we'll write fragment here. Now we have an extra bracket here. Is this all right? It's save and we get an error. Hit escape. Okay. I think we'll have to import fragment as per the. Again, this is a version issue that you might get, but I think this can be solved. Let me see. Okay, I got the issue. We have not used a closing bracket. And you see, as we save, there is a hot model replacement and everything is as it should be. Now, with this change our divs to fragment, with this our DOM will not have an additional element. It will be rendered correctly. Now, there is actually an even better way to do so. Okay, what we can do is we can get rid of this. Again, we don't need this also. And we can get rid of fragment. We can get rid of this fragment also. We can simply use empty brackets, and with this, we are telling the browser to wrap everything inside a fragment. All right, we hit save, and you see nothing changes. Okay, here are our items. All of items are here, and the heading also we have already. Okay, beautiful. Now these lists are useless because we have hard coded these items in our markup. What if you wanted to render list of items dynamically? How do you do that? Well, let's declare a constant. So just above our returned, give some space. Let's create a constant and items. What can we uh, as items? Let's declare as items and set it as an array of strings. All right. We can use name of fruits. All right. So let's see. Apple. Then we can have is banana. Then what can have is a mango. So we have five items, right? Uh, then we can have is pineapple. Then we can have is a guava. All right. So we have created a constant of items. All right. And we have set it to an array of strings. And we have used name of fruits. All right. Now, what's next? Now in JSX, we don't have a for loop, so we cannot write for items in item render, whatever, it does not work that way. So we'll use a different technique in JavaScript. As you may probably know, array has a method called as map or mapping for converting each item to an item of a different type. All right. So if we write here itself, let's see, items dot map. Okay, items dot map, and then we can say and then we can use an arrow function, right? Uh, so we can say item equals to, and then convert take. So we are saying basically take each item and then convert each item to a different type. So here we want to convert each item to a list element, right? So here we type li, hit not this li, but a list li. Do we have that? No issues. We'll create one. All right. And inside this, since we cannot add anything except for okay, we need to write items. Okay, items dot map, items arrow function, and then we want to convert each of these items into a different list element, right? So we'll write inside this item. We hit save. All right, we are wanting, yeah, we hit save, and voila, everything is here. What we need to do again. So here we want to item convert each item into a li element. So here we type li, and inside these tags we want to render the item itself. So earlier I told you in JSX we use curly braces to render data dynamically. So here we render the item itself, and that is why we are using curly braces. So I hope this makes sense. Here we are going to delete all of these list items entirely. However, and bring this code down because we want to render this. All right. However, we get a compilation error as this is not allowed in between of a JSX markup because we cannot use anything other than an HTML element or a React element. I'm repeating this again and again. So what we can do is we can wrap this entire thing also inside a curly braces. Again, not this. Just we hit save. Everything is formatted correctly. And we have our list of items here again and the heading also. In JSX, we can only use HTML and other React components. So in order to render this element, we had to wrap this inside curly braces. Now, all right. So now I have realized that I forgot to apply the CSS class to these lists. So items, list of items basically. So we lost our styling, but don't worry, we'll add that later on. So you see, previously we had some CSS, these kind of items with rounded corners and boxes, but I forgot to apply a CSS class. We'll fix that later on. Now we go to the developer tools and head over to console. You'll see um, we have a warning right here, actually a lot of them, which says each child in the list should have a unique key prop, right? You can see it right here, the latest or the last. Okay, I'll refresh it again so that you get a single warning. You see, each child in this list should have a unique key prop. So what does this mean? Back to our code. Here we are mapping each item to our list. Okay, we are mapping each of our items in this particular array to a list. All right. The warning says that each item should have a key prop or a key property that uniquely identifies that element. All right. We are not identifying each of our elements uniquely, and that is why there is an error. React, why is that important? Because React needs this to identify each item uniquely so that later on when the React renders this dynamically and there is a change in the web page, it needs to update them dynamically, and it needs to know which node it has to change. All right. So when rendering data using the map item, we should give each item a unique key. And how can we do that? In this case, each item is a unique fruit, so that so we can give the item itself. Okay, list already has something called as the key, and inside this key we can simply pass item again. We hit save, we hit refresh, and there is no warning because now each item is identified uniquely. This is okay for this particular use case because we only have fruits, we know what items we are passing. But in real world application, where you retrieve items from an API, so from someone else's server, quite often item has an ID. So we use something as item.id. All right. But we don't have that in this case, so we don't have to worry. Now back to our browser, we hit refresh and our warning is gone. And we have our beautiful list, beautiful. Now, let us go ahead and see conditional rendering. Okay, so this was just rendering everything. Now we'll see conditional rendering. So rendering based on certain conditions. Sometimes we want to render content based on different conditions, right? If this happens, then print this. If this does not happen, then print this. For example, here we can add an if statement. All right. So I'll show you. Uh, we can add a if statement right here. If items, okay, items dot length is equals to 0. Perhaps you want to show a different message to the user in this case. So we can simply uh, return what you want to return, a paragraph maybe, which says no item found. All right, and then we'll close this. Now, so here we want to return a completely different markup, and that is no items found. All right. Now to make sure it works, I'm going to change the constant to a variable. So let's go ahead and change this to let, and then we can reassign uh, items here. All right, we hit save, and we get no items found. Okay, beautiful. But our heading is gone. Let's add our heading and then wrap this entire thing in a fragment. So we'll also add an heading here, H1, and let's say list, or let's say only a list, and then we need to wrap this entire thing. So I'll just give some space here. So this is visible. And then we need to wrap this entire thing in fragment. All right. We'll take this from here, Control X, and then we'll put it behind. Okay, we hit save, and you have our heading also. And as you hit save, every time you hit save, Prettier is going to make this prettier. It is going to arrange everything so that it is easier to read. So it has a H1, our fragment, and a paragraph on different lines. Again, we have parentheses for spreading this code over different lines. All right, as you can see here. Make sure to have these if you're not using Prettier, because this is really important. Without this, you might run into errors. So we have our heading now, but I don't like this implementation because heading is duplicate and we have a bit of duplication. And generally speaking of duplication in code is not considered as a good practice. Let me show you a different way to achieve the same result. We are going to get rid of this if statement now. It was just to show you. All right. We are going to render things conditionally inside our JSX itself. All right. So let's go inside uh, just below H1, not inside the list. And inside this, what we can do is so we are going to render things conditionally. All right. So as told earlier, we can only use HTML elements or other React components. Now, the only exception is braces. So what happens? Give me, right, we'll start from here. So the only exception is braces. With braces, we can render anything dynamically, anything that returns a result basically. So we can use a ternary operator in JavaScript. So we start our condition with items dot length, and after this we write equals to 0. If this is the case, then a question mark. And if this particular condition right here is true, then we want to give out a paragraph, not a package, a paragraph which says no items found. And if this condition is false, then in that case, we want to print out null. We hit save and we get our no items found. So this is a better way of doing this. With this, we have the same result as before, and our implementation is a little bit more concise. Now, what bugs me again is the null here, right? This null here is unnecessary. We can get rid of this so we can optimize our code even further. Let me show you a better way to do this. What you can write is just simply copy this. Again, we are writing something that is not HTML or React. So what we are going to do is we are going to wrap this inside curly braces. All right. So we'll get rid of this null. And instead of this ternary operator, we are going to use a logical and. How do you write logical and? We simply write two ands. All right. We hit save and you get again no items found. Okay, so how is it working? Let's go ahead and understand that. So Chrome developer tools or browser will be our JavaScript playground as usual. So let's try something. Okay, we write true and logical and write one. Hit enter, we get a one. We write true and then we write logical and then we write mosh or Ujjwal. We hit enter. Sorry, so I did a wrong parentheses, Ujjwal, and we hit enter, we get Ujjwal. Okay, we write false and Ujjwal, I get a false. Okay, so did you get an idea? If the first condition is true and if the second part has some value, it is going to give out that particular value. True and one will give one, true and Ujjwal will give Ujjwal. But if the first condition is false, it is going to return nothing. In this case, it is returning false because we have written false. All right. In this case, it would return nothing. All right. So this is how it is working. Now we'll go one step ahead and we'll learn how to handle events. All right. Uh, we'll take a small 1 minute break and I'll see your comments. Why do we use fragment again? So I'll tell you. Before that, before using fragment, we were using div, and div is just another additional component that we do not need. It is really unnecessary. It is just there to make React happy because React wants everything wrapped under one element only, and that is why we did not use div because it will occupy some space. Fragment is an empty container, and that is why we use fragment. React does not recognize fragment, but yet executes everything inside it. All right. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and handle events. I'll do a simple one, and then we can drop it for today. All right. So now let's see how we can handle events in a component. First, I'm going to remove this particular line here, items, and so, and we hit save. Good. We have our list of items back. This is all right. So we bring back our items. Good. Now, earlier I realized that I made a mistake and forgot to apply one of the bootstrap classes in our list. Okay, we'll get rid of this also. I think we don't need this, and we'll change this to constant again. Hit save, everything is there. Yeah. So earlier I realized I made a mistake and forgot to apply one of our bootstrap classes to our list elements. Let's go ahead and apply that first. Where do we apply that? We will give a class name to our list elements, and that will be list group item. We hit save, and you see we got our bootstrap styling back. We can check this class. So you might be wondering, why did I write list group item? As said previously, Bootstrap gives you a set of predefined classes which you can use to simply style your elements. So we get into list group and we see it has a class of list group item. That is why we use this class name here. All right. So I hope this makes sense. Uh, all right. Everything is fine. Looks good to me. Okay, that's better. Now we want to be able to click on each item and see it on the console. In React, each item has a property of on click. So we had a property of key item to give each item a unique key. Similarly, we have a property called as on click, and this on click has to have curly braces, because inside this we use a arrow function. Arrow functions are nothing, but it is a function with no input parameters. All right. So we give arrow function, and this will say console.log, and when every time we are clicking this, we hit Control Save. Prettier will automatically format this, bring each of the properties into different lines, and when we hit click, you see it will say clicked. All right. So this is how we handle events. Next up, I'll show you. So let's as we hit save, why is prettier very important? As we hit save every time, it will automatically format my code into beautiful readable format. Okay. What if you wanted to see the actual item that was clicked? Well, this is where we are mapping each item to an item to list element particularly. Now, if we click on each item, we want that particular item to be logged on the console. So if we want to click apple, we want apple to be logged. If we are clicking banana, we want to log banana. So that is our aim. So how do we do that? So we can simply pass on the item here. Hit save, and now I click apple. Apple is printed, banana is printed, mango is printed, pineapple is printed, and guava is printed. All right. This is how we console log whatever I click upon. All right. And by the way, while logging items, we can also add a second parameter, that is index. So item space index, and we can log that particular index here. So it will not only log the particular item, but also tell its position. So we hit save. Apple is at 0, banana is at 1, mango is 2, pineapple 3, guava is at 4. All right. Now we have seen this. Just one last thing, and then we'll wrap this up. Now this arrow function can optionally have a parameter that represents a browser event. Okay. So this arrow function, we can uh, pass in a parameter which represents every browser event that is happening. So we call it E, or we can write event. All right. So let's see what happens when we log this particular event or the browser event. So we write event, we hit save, and let's see what happens when we press on Apple. All right. So we're pressing on Apple now. You see, there is a synthetic base event. Okay, I know this is a fancy term. This is one of the built-in classes of React because different browsers have different implementations of event objects. So to make this cross-browser, React team has created a class called synthetic browser event, as you can see right here. And this is nothing but a wrapper around the native browser event object. Okay. I know it is not making a lot of sense to you right now, but it will make sense as I just open this particular arrow here. All right. Now, so from starting and selling, it is capturing a browser event that is happening. Okay. So what is it capturing? So let's say I clicked, this is being captured here. Now, if you look at the properties of the object, you see the different properties like client X and client Y. What is this? This is nothing but the position where I clicked. All right, so I clicked on Apple. This is 48 pixels from the top X and 69 pixels from the left of the screen or left of the browser window. So this is what is this doing? It is capturing that particular browser event. Okay, let's see more of this. We can go down. So you see target. This is the target. This is the area where we clicked. It has captured that also. The timestamp. Um, then what else can we see that makes complete sense immediately? Type was click. So if we did a key press, it would have recorded a key press. Since I did a click, it has recorded click. So this is how we can console log a particular browser event. Okay. All right. I think that's all right, everyone. That's it for day three. I'm going to share the attendance form. Just give me a moment. I need to explain something also. I hit enter. All right. So we have now wrapped up the basics of React.js, and I hope today helped you to connect the dots and gain more confidence. Tomorrow we move into a whole new space. We'll begin development using Lovable AI and see how AI is transforming front-end development. We'll compare it with what we have learned in React and explore when and how to use such tools effectively. But before we close out today, I have something really exciting to share. We are officially launching our Smart Ed Campus Ambassador program. So this is for all the students, college students, or school students who have joined. This is your chance to represent SmartEd at your college, school, whatever university or institution you're studying in, and become a part of something bigger. Definitely, there'll be perks. You'll get free courses worth 5,500 rupees, a letter of recommendation, placement opportunities with SmartEd and other associated companies. You get official certificate of recognition also. And yes, there will be cool goodies and rewards as you complete certain milestones. If you have been enjoying this bootcamp and want to grow your network skills and career opportunities, this is the right place for you. We'll be sharing this Google form right now to you, and you can fill in this form, start filling in this form. And if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I'll share that link as well. I'm just sharing it on the chat. So this is my LinkedIn, and I'm sharing my Google form as well, attendance form, sorry. I'll just share. Okay, so this is the attendance form. I'll wait for a few minutes so that every one of you have the access to the attendance form. As yesterday, I get a lot of DMs saying that that you could not fill up the attendance. All right. So make sure to mark your attendance if you're interested into the AI bootcamp. Please make sure to attend that. And if you're interested in this campus ambassador thing, definitely this will be really helpful. You'll get a lot of free courses to study, fully LOR, you get placement opportunities, you get different goodies. So either you can scan this QR code or select this yes, I'm interested checkbox. Okay. Neha Rajput sir, okay. So if you're not attended, please try to attend as much as possible. Attend today's class, tomorrow's class, and day after tomorrow's class, and let's see if you get a certificate. I'll try for the students who have missed first and second days to still get a certificate. So please make sure to attend tomorrow and day after tomorrow. All right, all right. Thank you, everyone.